Wow.
Wild entrance. Okay.
Wow, that is a great start. Usually that siren is coming from me.
No,
But
I'm
that's
in DC.
you're in DC? Okay.
Of
So
course, it
definitely,
starts as soon as we go live.
yeah, the
I have a
siren goes
few hours
off.
a day.
Well, definitely wanted to welcome everyone our to our hangout with Morgan, who is the CEO and founder of Blavity. I have two co-hosts, Hannah, who is a computer science major at Howard University, and then also Tariq, who is a good friend who's actually leading an initiative for the city of Wilmington, Delaware, right now, where he's helping professionals learn how to code. So let's get started. We're actually going to just start with the introduction with you, Morgan. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Blavity.
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Morgan. A little bit about me. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I went to school at Washington University in St. Louis. Moved out of STL to Mountain View in the Bay to work as a product manager at Intuit. And let's see, a little bit about and then I quit Intuit to start Blavity, basically, which is how we're here. But I've always been kind of like an entrepreneur. I was the kind of the girl in middle school who was like trying to sell Kool-Aid and mix it with sugar and call it Fund It and like charge people 25 cents. And so, yeah, it's kind of inevitable that I created something. The only wild card is that it's working, right? So not my first startup, but the first one that you guys are hearing about, which is exciting. So I'm excited to hear kind of your questions and happy to take the conversation wherever you want to go.
Okay. Um, do you want to talk a little bit more about what Blavity is doing right now?
Yeah. So Blavity is a media tech startup. We create content and experiences for Black millennials. Our main distribution channel is our website. And really the thing about Blavity is we want to help people see their shared experiences. So whether that is funny memes, from Twitter or access to information that we know mainstream media isn't going to cover. Or it could be just developing smaller communities around certain verticals like the foodie community or healthy living, or even events to some extent. So when you think about Blavity, you should think about an ecosystem of content and experiences using technology for the Black young professional and millennial, creative community at large.
And I just wanted to add for those who are watching through Hangouts, you can ask questions through the question and answer interface. There's two ways it may be displayed to you. One, it may be displayed on the top of your screen. There might be a nine square icon. You can click on that, and it'll take you to the question and answer app where you can ask a question. Or it may be on the left side of your screen, and it says Q&A. And if you click on that, you'll be able to answer questions. So we can kind of like just get started. We do have one question that's coming in.
Yeah.
And the one question is, how would you say Blavity is different from other online spaces that target Black people and Black experiences?
Wow, good question. So a few different ways. I'll start with Black media companies, right? So there's companies like The Root, Black Enterprise, Madame Noir, The Griot. Those are in essence, right? Online, well, essence is a publication as well, print, but mostly online media companies. And when I think about them, I think about pieces of content and companies that were non-digital who then translated what they were already doing in the physical world online when like the internet happened. Blavity is different from them because we are digital first. We're mobile first, digital first. We are building products and just using distribution channels like Snapchat and Instagram as their own like products and services to our community, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But that's how we're different. We come from a perspective of being native, whereas I think others think about media in a traditional space. Now, in terms of, there's a lot of companies that target Black millennials who aren't Black, right? BuzzFeed, Elite Daily, Vice. And the difference between us and them is that we're authentic, right? So Blavity is a reflection of our peers. My team is incredibly diverse and diverse within the diaspora, right? And that makes us more in tune and have a kind of quality experience.
Okay.
So, can I ask you a question, Morgan? How did you, you said this is not your first startup idea. So, how many other startups did you try, and what was it about Blavity that made the difference from being something that just was an idea to something that has a certain level of success?
Yeah, so I've started 7 startups. It depends how you define startup, right? It's like, did we incorporate as a Delaware C Corp for all of them? No, we didn't get that far. But I think the first official startup was in college as a sophomore. My friends and I started this company called Quad Connect. And Quad Connect was a platform for campuses to find free food and to find events and what was happening around you. Because there was this kind of information asymmetry where there may be an event on Facebook, but if you're not friends with those people, then you wouldn't have gotten invited. You don't know where it is. There's flyers all over campus, but it's hard to organize that information. And so this was a way to filter it. And it was a great idea. I still think it's a great idea. But the execution was miserable. The team dynamic was off. People graduating at exams. There's a lot of distractions. And let's see, that was probably the first one. I had another idea that was a personal finance app for millennials where you graduate, you've got this great salary that's $50,000 a year. You don't know how to spend it. What % of your money is supposed to go to housing versus food versus this versus that? And so based off of your risk profile and kind of influencers, right, like Susie Orman, you could then get an ideal budget and then match it up with your Mint account and things like that. So my point is lots of ideas, some of which are good, some of which are bad. And the reason why I kind of stuck my feet in the ground with Blavity is a few things. One, it's something that it's a huge market, right? Black millennials are huge. 56% of the Black population is under the age of 35 today, right? And so when I think about building a brand that people can identify with, that becomes just a habit as a part of their life, just as much as Twitter is a habit and CNN is a habit and all these other things. It's an awesome opportunity to build that for our generation, where I think other companies have missed the mark. So that's one, big market. Two, an opportunity that I felt like I could solve. It's about knowing your customer, and it's about moving quickly and being genuine. And I felt like that's something that me and my group of friends and our team could tackle. And then, from a money perspective, it's not just there's a lot of people that have this problem. It needs to be profitable. And we all know Black people spend money, and we all know that people advertise to us, and we know that we influence a lot of stuff. You look at me, look at music. I mean, being able to create a platform and a community for Black people and Black millennials, you can then say, here's what we think is going to trend. Here are the dances that we think people might start doing, right? There's a lot of things that you can do with data beyond just, us writing great essays every day that you guys read.
Okay. I think we have another question coming in.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's start with how can we expect Blavity in the new year? What can we expect from Blavity in the new year, and how can those interested in tech but without STEM backgrounds connect with y'all? And so I know, Morgan, you shared a little bit about being in the Valley and not having a technical background, but yeah, so let's see.
So first part, what can we expect from Blavity in the new year? So much stuff is happening. So for those who have kept up with us, when let me just kind of give you our life cycle of Blavity. We're in about month 16 now, and so we launched Blavity last summer, July 2014. And it started as an email newsletter that was a video newsletter. It was the top 10 videos that you needed to watch this week. And it was just YouTube links. It would just click the link, cute little thumbnail, boom, straight to YouTube. We tracked the data in that email so that people could see, so we could see like what topics people were interested in, and then we built out a custom site with a recommendation engine and everything. So instead of clicking the link to YouTube, you click the link to our site, which had the embedded YouTube, and you could discover other stuff. That failed miserably, and so, you know, we went through a few iterations. You know, I thought maybe it was the design, so we updated the design. I thought that maybe people just needed to drive traffic to it because it was hard to remember a new brand name. So we started writing a blog. And really what happened is that the blog that we were writing and releasing like every 2 weeks, the content was getting more clicks than the videos. And I was like, but I made this blog in like 48 hours on WordPress, and we spent a month building this custom site, right? But the people weren't having it. So we just kept going. You know, we made more and more written content, getting the stories out of the video creators that we were talking to, started doing editorial, getting essays, all of this different stuff. And so that was about in January of 2015. And so we totally switched everything. The video site's like no longer up. And that's also when we started to grow really, really quickly. So in terms of what you can expect in the new year for us, we are going back to video because I'm still a huge, huge believer and advocate of visual storytelling. You look at the trends, you look at things like Facebook and how they're changing their algorithm for more people to watch video. You look at new platforms deciding to introduce video and doing original content like Netflix. There's all these different movements in the video space as a result of cheaper technology and, you know, making it easier for people to create content. And so we are going to play in that space as well. So original video content as well as curated video so that you guys can find things like the best web series that just came out in the last month or dope spoken word videos. So that's a little bit about what you can expect in the next year. You know, standard stuff, right? More content, better quality content. As we've gotten bigger, we've gotten more access to really cool people, so doing interviews and kind of more exclusive things. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to go down a long plan of our roadmap. Let me answer the second question. How can people who connect with Blavity who don't have STEM backgrounds? So you can just connect with us. I mean, we are so responsive. You tweet at us, you'll get a response. You DM us, somebody will respond. You email us, someone will respond. So whether that's Instagram, Twitter, whatever, like the whole point of us existing is to be there for our community. And so reach out. In terms of activities, I mean, we have writers, we have designers, we have project managers, editors. So many different things are always happening. So I encourage everyone to just email team@blavity.com. If you have something that you think you want to do, just email us and we'll figure out if it's a good fit.
Good. And then the next question we have, and before I go into the next question, I do want to remind those who are watching, you could ask questions through the Q&A interface. And there might be two ways that you can access the Q&A interface. One is the top of your screen. There's like a 9-bar icon. You can click on that, and you see the Q&A. The other way may be on the left side of your screen. There's a section called Q&A. You can click on that and ask questions through there. All right. And if you're tweeting, we're using hashtag HBCU Blavity Chat. All right. So next question is, how does Blavity plan to incorporate the diversity of the modern Black experience and the opposing viewpoints underneath one brand? That's actually a really good question.
I love this question because I try to pound this in people's heads all the time on Twitter, that Blavity is a place for all opinions. And so it's something that we're fighting with right now. And so, like, for example, you know, you've got stuff going on with Mr. Huxtable, right? Cliff, also known as Bill Cosby, but there's a lot of opinions. Some people who are like, we shouldn't be like airing our dirty laundry. There's some people being like, we need to talk about this, and like, there's defenders, there's all of these things happening. And in my ideal world and in Blavity's future, I'd love for us to be able to be a house for all of those opinions and that dialogue. And so you could imagine going to the site and looking at something like affirmative action, right, as like a topic, and seeing the different opinions come up from different people in the Blavity community, whether that's Blavity staff who's done research and looked at reports and talked to industry experts, all the way to just normal people in our community who have an opinion and want to share it, like an op-ed, right? So definitely things that I'm constantly thinking about, and the biggest fight in my mind today is helping our community understand that Blavity is a platform. And yes, there are things that come out of Blavity where it's like, this is a unified Blavity response, but there's a lot of things that go out the door that I personally don't necessarily agree with, but that's okay. It's a solid argument. They have facts. It's respectful. It's going to go up.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so I know you've talked a little bit about the mission and the roadmap, and it is more than, because you talked about adding video back, so can you explain how it's more than just kind of like a media site?
Yeah. So I like to think of Blavity as like a hybrid of a lot of things that are happening right now. So there are websites where you have a community, right? Where you have logins and people can message each other and like have a user, login, literally. And that's one thing. There are some websites where you are passively getting information given to you, right? You just go, you look, that's it, right? Like TV. You're going on TV. TV's not talking back to you. You're not talking to people on TV. You're just consuming, right? And so when you take those two things and then you add something like mobile and web and channels like Snapchat, then you can see how we can have this ecosystem of a lot of different things. And so over time, you'll see separate products being released that address different platforms. So for example, on Twitter, we just launched our live tweeting account. So during Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, award shows, anything that's happening that you guys know it's going to be funny on Twitter, the debates, we're going to be tweeting from our live tweeting account because that's a unique experience to Twitter, right? Like you don't live status update on Facebook. Like you could live blog, but that's weird. So yeah, we're thinking about how do we provide value no matter what platform we're on, and that may mean in-person experiences, and that may mean mobile experiences or social.
Okay.
Yeah, and on the subject of different experiences for different media, I'm just wondering, what choices have you made when curating that keep the content on Blavity so authentic? Because whenever I'm on Blavity, I'm always struck by, I can tell things have been like well thought out and well curated. And I don't always get that feeling when I'm on other media sites that are aimed towards African American people, because sometimes I feel like it falls into certain tropes or certain things that we all see over and over again.
It's really tough. I attribute that to the team. Like we've got an amazing head editor, Christine. We have awesome editorial fellows, 3 awesome women who are just killing it. And so we operate in small teams. So let me share a little bit about how we're structured, and that might help shed some light. So every semester, basically, every semester is a short term. We've only been around for 16 months. But every semester since we've existed, we've had internship programs. And so we separate people based off of their role, like writing or design or engineering. And then each team has a small team leader who's usually like an executive team member, or more recently, someone who's been on the team for more than 6 months. So kind of like a peer buddy. And those small groups work together to accomplish one goal. So for example, our marketing team, we have one person who manages Blavity Life Twitter. We have one person who manages Blavity Life Pinterest, Blavity Life Instagram, right? We have one person who manages our newsletter. And what that allows people to do is to be really, really good at that one thing, right? And they are on it, and they just kill it, right? So Jay, who writes our newsletter every week, that's his main role within the company, and it's amazing. Like, he writes it, funny, you want to open it, you're like sharing it with people, you're screenshotting the footnotes because it's great and it's genuine. And so by not stretching ourselves too thin, by making everybody do a bunch of different things, we can continue to be authentic. We don't post that much, right? We post 5 pieces of content per day, and that's about as much as any human could consume. Over time, we might release more content based off of the demographic that we're targeting, but by having less content, we can do things at a higher quality rate.
I have a question. So with a lot of these curated content sites, one of the, and I heard you mention it earlier about kind of doing some predictive trending on things that may happen in the future, whether it be like popular TV shows, dancing, and stuff like that. How are, especially with you guys being over distributed platforms, how are you guys tracking analytics to kind of do any, or are you guys doing any type of tracking of analytics, or doing any type of predicting of what's going to be popular in the future, or is there any type of thought going behind that?
Yeah, not yet. Blavity needs to get much, much bigger for us to have any sort of statistical significance. And we have to have the back end to support that sort of data collection in a responsible way, right? You know, there's lots of things you can do irresponsibly just to take people's data. We all know this, right? But to do it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that we can reposition that data and package it and share insights with other people, then we need to be much, much larger and have a structure organizationally through engineering and data scientists to be able to support that. But you know, and I think as you're alluding to, that's big money, right? Big data, big money. So it's a vision, but we got a lot of stuff. There's so many steps in between before we can get there.
More data, more problems.
More data, more problems.
All right, let's take a question. Let's take a question. So the next question is, what is the symbolism behind the name Blavity? How did you come up with Blavity?
Yeah, so I started Blavity. The word came from our campus at WashU, which is a predominantly white school, white institution, PWI. When I first got there, let me back up. So they do these things like where you come to campus when you're a pre-freshman, and you come visit, and they try to sell you on the school, and you get to stay with someone, and it's just so much fun, and you're like, oh my God, I have to go here and spend $1 million. So I did that. And I stayed with, they matched black people but black people, right, logically. And I stayed with this girl, and she was awesome. And we just had so much fun. And I felt like I went to an HBCU, or that I was going to an HBCU, because it was like, go to the Black Student Union Club, sit at the black table at lunch, go to the, the classes, and then we have the black party, and then they invited like all the Greeks. So it felt like it was a lot of people, but it really wasn't. And so Blavity is the term for, it stands for Black Gravity. And when we would sit down at lunch every day, that was the one moment where everybody was together, right? It didn't matter what class you were in, what major, whether you were in a school of engineering or a school of arts and sciences, there was a table in the middle of the cafeteria where all the black people sat. And even if you didn't sit there for like a month or 2 months, it wasn't like people were going to be like, oh, like, you can't sit with us. It's just not like that. It was very much of a familial kind of community, and it was the root of my day every day. And so Blavity was that term when like one person would sit down and like 5 people would sit down, and all of a sudden you had like 30 people around a table that could only fit 10, being really loud and having a lot of fun. So that was the word Blavity that we had come up with to describe that moment.
All right, and so we have another question that says, with Black culture leading in fashion, sports, music, how does Blavity position itself to support future production as well as consumption for tech in Black culture?
Future production as well as consumption for tech and Black culture. So I think this is going in, how do we think about content creation in like big verticals where Black people do have a lot of influence? And my answer is I'm not quite sure what things like fashion and sports and music really, maybe music's more so, but fashion and sports probably not going to touch anytime soon, at least. So, I think our priorities are, written content, thoughts, intellectual content, um, videos, micro content, things that are under 30 minutes that we can produce or curate or partner with to create, and experiences in terms of allowing our community to connect each other, through messaging, through ways of email aliases, newsletters, all of these things that we can do to connect people to one another. Those are the first few verticals that we're going to tackle: video, information, and communication.
And so I have a question. So you recently moved to DC. And so I know you from being here in San Francisco, and you were here for, I think, for a few years. How would you, when you look at Black tech startups and the culture surrounding just tech startups in general right now, Silicon Valley's, quote unquote, has this diversity problem. What is the biggest difference as you make the transition to DC in terms of the tech culture?
Oh, it's
Have you found one yet?
incredibly different. I love Silicon Valley tech culture. I know that there's a lot of things going on, but being in a place where saying things like, "Yeah, I want to build $100 million company," is like no one looks at you twice. You're like, "Okay, that's cool. Like, keep it moving, right?" Everybody's working on dope stuff, or you work for a cool company that's really going beyond yourself. And even if it's something silly like Snapchat, which is actually in LA, but was formed in the Bay, it doesn't matter. You're still impacting billions and billions of people, right? Which is very cool. The equivalent of that in DC is politics, right? And that's good too. I was a poli-sci major in undergrad, so I have a little bit of an appetite for it as well. But I think the special and magical part of the Bay is that everybody is thinking and doing something. I've met people here in DC where I'm like, okay, cool, but you go home and watch Netflix, or what else are you doing? And you don't really get that as much in the Bay. And for me, actually, it's kind of good because it's probably more representative of my customer base. Really, my customer base is out here trying to make $100 million companies every day. They are going home and watching Netflix and reading magazines and listening to podcasts or NPR or whatever. So yeah, it's great in terms of balancing the reality of the rest of the world outside of the Bay with innovation. So kind of my strategy moving forward is to travel a lot and be here in terms of how we grow the company and headquarters, but make sure that I'm still in New York and LA and San Francisco so that I don't lose my edge.
and I'm going to add on to that. So we're going to actually bring back into the diversity piece. So you are a Black woman.
Yeah.
And you are building a tech startup for Black people. What are some of the challenges that you kind of ran against doing that? And especially, you can probably talk about fundraising or just building a company.
Absolutely. So I think it's the same thing that our parents told us. You have to be 110% better than everybody else. Right? So I couldn't walk into any VC conversation without amazing metrics that they literally had to be like, wait, you said what? They're doing what? With how much money? Oh, $0? You do this? Okay, right? You have to create a story that is so phenomenal that no one can not take the meeting. That it would be an insult for them to not take the meeting, legit. It would just be like, this is just racist, right? And we're not all the way there. Blavity's metrics aren't crazy off the wall that people are just we gotta have all the meetings. But I didn't start fundraising And I didn't start opening up those conversations until I felt incredibly confident in what we had built. I made the decision prematurely, like early on, for about 2 weeks to try to like put out some feelers for if we could raise money. And I was like, nope, we're not ready because they didn't get it. Like talking to people and explaining what we were doing. And even now, I still think it's a little nebulous. Like you guys are here, you've seen Blavity, you probably are, maybe on the email list. So you kind of get it now. But 7 months ago, when we still had the video side and we were doing email, we were doing a lot of different things that were confusing to people. As many startups do, they try a lot of different ideas before they find product market fit. And so I made the decision that we were going to sacrifice a few things from a financial standpoint to be able to continue to test and be really, really confident when we walked into anybody's door and asked them for, $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a Black woman, I mean, I have certain privileges that other people don't have, and I have certain disadvantages that other people don't have. I think it all comes together. So many questions.
Yeah. Give me a second. My screen is actually refreshing here.
How do you lift others, specifically Black women, as you climb?
I love this question. Most of my team is Black women, which is awesome, and I love them so much. So I don't know if I have a specific strategy. I think you could ask anyone on the team about me and my leadership style. I'm incredibly transparent. You can pretty much ask me anything, and I will tell you the truth. And I think that level of transparency has helped a lot of people on our team see that they too can do this, right? One of the first questions that I ask a lot of folks when they join is like, what are your goals? What are your short-term goals? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And how they answer that after being at Blavity for like 6 months is incredibly different than how they started, right? People start blogs, people are building their own company, they're like, oh, I'm too busy, like I just went and got my master's. Oh, okay, great. Like things that people didn't think that they could do, they are doing. And so whether that's Black women, college students, Black men, we have some non-Black people on the team as well. And it really, I'm kind of agnostic about making sure that we have a culture where people are learning and people are getting access to the fact that we're building a company, and that's something that they can do as well. So if they want to participate in any conversation, they're always welcome to do so.
And then there's a question from a computer science teacher who teaches 6th graders, and they want to know, how should they mold their students' perception of programming, and what advice could you give them on their road ahead?
Yeah, what a fun question. Whenever I talk to students, I try to help them understand that what they consume and what they use, they could create, right? So when I'm like, you guys are all on Snapchat. The guy who made Snapchat is 25 years old. He's 20, So like, you could have made Snapchat. You can make Snapchat. You can make a version of Snapchat, right? And so I asked them, what do you like about this? What don't you like about Snapchat? What don't you like about, Twitter or YouNow, which is like a video one that people are using, or Yik Yak or any of those things. And they'll tell you, they'll say, oh, I don't like that this button doesn't work, or I don't like that it's hard to find new features, or I don't like that it buzzes me all the time. And I like to invite people into those conversations and then point out that those are actually things that they can fix. And then I say things like, have you submitted a feedback ticket? Have you written into the company and told them that you don't like it, right? So that to involve them in that process of thinking innovatively and realizing that change is in their control, and that they should start. Start now, start early. Your voice is important, and how you process things may be different than someone else, and it may be superior than someone else in a lot of ways. They may not have thought about what you thought about because of your experiences, and your experiences are different. So helping any student understand that, even non-computer science students. I mean, it's awesome that you're a comp sci teacher for sixth graders. Like, that's dope. I would have loved that. So they're already winning. But yeah, that's my answer.
Can I add on to that? I don't know if I believe the person asking questions, sixth grade teacher. I don't know if you know about programs like Girls Develop It or Girls Who Code. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations that are structured just to get girls in at that age range into developing, and they have curriculum that is structured for that. So I mean, if you could reach out to them and start get some of their curriculum, which is actually pretty awesome, and implement a lot of that in your school.
Yeah, totally. I think those are great organizations, and um, there's some for men, and I think you can kind of Google it and find a different. Or Hadia, you might have a lot of those contacts as well.
Yeah, I can actually add some of the links to there's the showcase section of the Hangout, and I can add those links to the showcase section as well.
So,
And our next question is from Cassandra Booker. She wants to know, how has Blavity gained so much traction, and what has been your marketing strategy?
yes, we have grown a lot, and I think it's mostly because of word of mouth, as most companies have grown quickly. Um, let's see, marketing strategy, authenticity, right? We want to be authentic. We are authentic. We spend a lot of time thinking about our voice and our tone and the word choice, and making sure that it speaks to people. So when the first thing that I did when I started Blavity was create a user persona, and it was. And it still to this day is the same, and every single person who joins the company has to read it, and like read it, own it, love it. This is you. This is what you become, right? And that persona is your cool cousin who lives in Brooklyn, and he comes home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. He went to Howard undergrad and maybe like, I don't know, Princeton or Harvard Law or something like that for grad school. And he's so hipster cool, you're just like, ah, when he walks in the door, and when he comes home, you're just like, I just want to talk to you. What are you doing in your life? Like, you're so cool, right? And he's telling you like what people are doing and like, oh, cool Instagram accounts to follow. And you look up to him. You know, the way he lives his life is dope to you. And he may have his ratchet side, like he might go out to the clubs when he comes home, you know, sip a little something, but he's got his shit together, right? And that is ultimately that's the persona, and you just switch out a man for a woman, right? But yeah, that's the persona that we look for, when we're writing, when we're doing things like our newsletter, when we're tweeting, and the copy that you see. And I think that extra little pieces of magic where it's kind of like, that was funny, right? That helps us grow a lot, and that brings a lot of people through the door. So when you look at things, let me get really specific so that you can see an example. Look at our Instagram account. So for those of you who are on your phones and stuff, go to Blavity's Instagram account. It's just at Blavity, and you'll see that we post pictures. Our entire Instagram account, or like 90% of it, I would say, is us promoting someone else. We don't promote ourselves. It's not like, hey, follow Blavity on Snapchat. Follow Blavity on Instagram. Follow Blavity here. Follow Blavity there. Like, buy this thing. Read this article. Like, we don't even direct people on our Instagram account off Instagram. You know, it's like, follow this other person on Instagram. They're dope. Go look at this new app. This is really cool, right? There's lots of things that we do in its own little ecosystem to help people discover each other. And as a result, people come to us for discovery. So when we shout someone out and we're like, hey, shout out some small businesses. We did this morning. Shout out some small businesses that we should know. Comments, all the comments. Well, all those people that they just shouted out, if they didn't know what Blavity was, now they've clicked that link and they're like, why did I just get, who just shouted me out? What is this account? Why am I here? And they're like, oh, this is dope. Follow, right? So the account has to be dope or else they wouldn't follow. But you also have to invite other people to invite their friends into our ecosystem. And that's how you build word of mouth. And so we have strategies like that, depending on the platform, where we encourage folks to share, and to share in a way that's going to provide value to them and to the person that they shared with.
Yeah, listening to your description of the Blavity persona kind of made me think about This American Life, the NPR podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, is Blavity thinking about podcasting or just, I know you guys already create spaces for people to think about things they often see from different perspectives, but is there kind of some overlap there?
Yeah, podcasting is so cool. I listen to a bajillion podcasts, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for Blavity to get into that space. It's really just a matter of priorities and resources. There's an interesting thing about startups where we move really quickly, and sometimes we move so quickly that our customer base can't digest everything that we're releasing, right? So we got new accounts, we're launching new verticals, we're going to update the site, we're going to mobile app, newsletters, all this stuff. You can only sign up for so many things within so much time, right? And so we have to pace ourselves and do things smartly and do them really well. And then we can add, new things. I mean, a podcasting part of the company would be significant, right? Just like is going to be significant for us in the near future.
So we have another question, and you talked about the transition in terms of in the past year, how you started out as a video newsletter. But I guess the main question here is, how did you handle discouragement or criticism of your dream? And I'm going to add, because I remember I went through some of your past tweets, and especially through your one-year Blavity birthday in July. I think it was July. Yeah. And you talked about how when you originally had talked to Chris Lyons about the name when you were starting up, and he didn't like the name, and you almost changed the name. So can you talk about how you handled the discouragement and criticism?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Chris Lyons is, I think his title is Chief of Staff at Andreessen Horowitz, which is like one of the best VCs in the world. So when as a startup founder, when someone at a VC like Andreessen says, well, I don't really like the name, you're like, okay, so BRB, right?
Which name do you want?
And so I legitimately, and I have the emails, and the emails are hilarious because the names that we were coming up with are just horrible, like kitchen sink. We were going to be called kitchen sink. Like, we were everything but the kitchen sink. Like, it was not cute. And yeah, I think I very quickly, like, if I had anything that I wish that I would have done differently, it would be to trust my gut, right? Because ultimately, I usually wind up going back where my gut was. And so redirecting and listening to people's feedback, everybody has an opinion. I get so many emails every day with opinions. You should do this. You should cover that. Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And I'm like, right? You have to know what you're open to hearing feedback on, and everything else you accept. You say, thank you. I appreciate your feedback, and you move on, right? Respectfully. But for most things, I go about trusting my gut. Now, there's a lot of criticism that we do get that is incredibly valid. And for those moments, I turn to the team and I say, hey, this came through on Twitter. What do you think? Like, are we messing up? Is this something we need to adjust? And then we have a debate, and we come up with a solution. So in terms of criticism of the dream, the big vision, I don't worry about that anymore. I used to. It's fine. Like, I believe in it. We have a group of people on our team who really believe in it. And I think it's necessary. I think Blavity is necessary for our community. And as we grow, we'll hopefully open new things and create new things that we didn't even think about in the beginning. So, yeah, for anyone that's dealing with folks who are saying what you're doing doesn't matter, if you really, really believe in it and you can convince a small group of other people that it is something that they should also be invested in, you're off to a good start. So keep going.
Okay. So you're in DC now. The next question has to do with what will be your future involvement, if any, with HBCUs in the DMV, and hint Howard, because I guess Howard is the biggest. So what will be some of your involvement with HBCUs?
Yeah, so I was at Howard last weekend. So, Nigel, I don't know where you were, but I was at Howard last Sunday for the hackathon with Black founders. And
Ah.
yeah, I mean, to the extent that they'd like to have me there, I'm happy to show up for whatever, whether that's panel.
Let me speak on behalf of all students at Howard. We would like you to show up. So this is not a question. It's a guarantee.
You let me know what makes sense, and I'm there. So
Okay.
in the long run, though, right? So
Yes.
one, of course, but in the long run, as a company, we'll be headquartered here, or at least have an office here, depending on what goes down. We'd love to have Howard interns and have people coming through to see what it's like. Whether that's office tours, all these things. That's all the future, right? We don't have the office yet, but soon. It should be starting soon.
Yeah. So that's funny because Nigel just asked that question, and both Nigel and Hannah were with me in the in about.
Like I was about my business, like.
So last weekend, when the Black Founders Hackathon was going on, we actually were here. There was the BET Tech Connect Summit, and Hannah and Nigel were here.
Black Enterprises Tech Connect Summit.
Oh, sorry. What did I say? Sorry, Black.
You said BET.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Black Enterprise. All right, so we have 10 minutes left. There's one question remaining regarding your technical platform.
Yeah.
Before we get into that question, let's talk about your team, its growth. You talked about needing additional writers. What are some of those dream skill sets that you would like to add to your team?
Yeah, so we're looking for a big partnerships person. We deal with big clients, and we're hoping to get more in the near future and planning on doing so. And so we need someone to help me manage those clients. And that would be someone who has background in either an ad agency where they represent the multicultural department of that ad agency or that ad firm, or someone who works at a multicultural firm and has relationships with these clients. So they speak the language, they know the positioning, they know what people are looking for, and they're looking to join a company where it's part of their own, right? Where they're building it from the ground up. We've got a long way to go. And so that's a really key component of our monetization strategy, which I haven't talked as much about here, which I'm happy to in the next 10 minutes as well, if someone's interested. And
yeah, go ahead and go into the monetization strategy. Okay.
It's like, money, how are you going to make money? So we're going to make money in a few ways. Partnerships and sponsorships, as I mentioned. So we've done deals with people like AT&T for the Black Enterprise conference, actually, where we were creating content on their behalf to showcase the conference and the content in the conference and the speakers to our audience, so that it reached a larger audience outside of just people who were able to attend that conference. We've done deals with beauty brands, people who want to distribute their products and services. A lot of really cool apps. We've worked with a lot of Black apps that are targeting the Black millennial space, as well as white apps that are targeting the Black millennial space. And so, yeah, there's something around partnerships and sponsorships, absolutely. Secondarily, advertising, not just like branded content, but just straight up banner advertisements, placements in the newsletter, things like that. They'll always be native and filtered, where Blavity will be creating the creative for it so that it is authentic and it has our voice and it's not disruptive. So that'll be the second thing. And then there's something around monetizing our own community, and not in a way that is like evil, but in a way that makes sense. So, for example, imagine that you had the Blavity app, right? And it was National Pancake Day, and we were like, open the app. We negotiated a deal with IHOP. We got you this discount. Let's go. Right?
I've already downloaded it. It's not even there yet. I've downloaded it.
Right? And that's not going to be the main functionality of the app. That's like a delightful experience that you like, hey guys, just like while you're reading, FYI, today is pancake day, and like here's 50% off all those pancakes you're gonna eat today, right?
You're gonna get 10 emails about that.
Right. Like, I want to make.
I can make the app. We can do it.
And I'll be like, no, we got a lot more problems.
It's a priority.
Besides solving people's pancake problems. So, but yeah, right. And then we may take a percentage of those sales, right? We would take some sort of affiliate marketing. I mean, it could manifest itself in many ways, but thinking about how do we create value to our customers and use Blavity as a purchasing platform for other things as well.
Okay. And we're going to take the last question before we can do final words. And so I assume that this person is a developer. And so the question is, what are you using in terms of building your platform right now? What technologies will you be using?
Yeah, so Blavity is built on WordPress, and we'll soon be moving to our own static site because WordPress is unstable and insecure. As we found out, we have been hacked multiple times, which is a longer story than the next 5 minutes. But
Blavity Part 2.
Yeah, Blavity Part 2. Holler at me in 6 months. But yeah, so it's on WordPress, moving to static site. So all of your standard web things. Your web languages, and then we're building a mobile iOS app. So in terms of your question about like would we consider doing an open source, opening up Blavity and its data so that people can create cool things, absolutely. We're not there yet. There's nothing totally unique about Blavity that would warrant us having an API. We'd have to have and store data and track a lot more things for me to feel comfortable saying, okay, like let's do some stuff here. Let's open up the playground. But I love that idea. I think there's a lot of opportunity there when you think about the different ways that people interact with our content and how in the future they could also interact with our content, particularly when we add a mobile app.
Okay.
Just a suggestion out there, when you guys do start moving in.
I knew you were going to have a suggestion.
You can't ask it that question and not have the engineer answer. All
right.
When you're looking for a good framework for multi-platform presentation layer development, you might want to take a look at the Ionic framework.
Yeah.
A lot of people are using that right now, and it can integrate a lot with. You can still get the same native platform functionality and save a little bit more time and development money.
Yep.
And so this engineer actually has a different opinion, but we can talk about that online. So Tariq and I go way back about fighting over frameworks. So.
And I know somebody else has probably told you about Ionic already, right, Morgan?
Yeah, so it's we have a short list of different frameworks that we're thinking about. But yeah, if people have thoughts, like I'm always on Twitter. Just tweet at me, I will respond, and just like everybody else. So.
All right. So, are there any?
ThoughtWorks agrees with me, Hadia.
Okay, so I don't want to get too much into it, but I mean, you got to think about production level. Okay, we'll think about it later. We can talk about it offline.
These engineers, they got to hold those back. But anyway, I guess I would want to ask you, as we're closing, like, what words of encouragement would you give to, like, Black millennials right now who are looking for spaces to express themselves? Of course, we all want to be on Blavity, but just in general, like, how do you navigate that with all the different social media, just a lot of oversaturation, and just things like that?
Yeah, I think that the first step is to like let yourself actually express yourself. Like, it's okay to express yourself in a public forum, and oftentimes people are surprised that so many others feel the same way that they do, and that things that you think are just unique to you, or things that maybe make you insecure or lonely. There's many people in the world that also feel that way. are things that make you happy and make you, a little bit weirder than the standard mainstream Black person. And so sharing that with other people is really important for our community growing, right? And being more comfortable in our own skin and in the diversity that is the Black culture of the world, right? And so, so I would share first, write it down, put it out on Twitter, put it out on Facebook, put it out on Instagram first. The second thing is, if anyone has opinions that they want to put on Blavity, they are welcome to. You can just email the team. Some things, as long as it's respectful, we're good and well written. Email the team@blavity.com, and we can figure it out. And also, I would say, Medium is a great place. I know there's a lot of conflict there, but I think Medium is still a great place for people to contribute their thoughts in a public platform from a written perspective. Medium and Instagram are my top two.
So we are basically out of time, and I want to thank everyone for joining us on this call on this Sunday evening. And so thank you, Morgan. So just last shouts. I've included the links in the showcase section of this hangout, and so go check out blavity.com, go sign up for the newsletter, go check out the Instagram. All the links are there. Support the community as much as possible. Also, if there's any way that you want to find out more about working with the team, Morgan has mentioned a couple times that you can send an email to team@blavity.com. And were there any other last words?
For me, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and for all of those you guys that were asking questions and listening. Please do DM me or tweet at me. I'd love to continue the conversation. So, yay.
All right. Well, definitely want to thank everyone, including the co-hosts, Hannah and Tariq. And Tariq, we can argue later about our frameworks. All right. All right. Everyone have a good night.
All right. Bye, Hannah. Bye, Tariq.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.